And if you look closely, 10 Iowa pilots died and 5 from Nebraska, flying in the Royal Canadian Air Force for the British defending England, Great Britain against the Germans.
Got clutter piling up? FM Junket in Carson, Iowa is your hometown cleanup crew. Fast hauling, fair prices, and now easy dumpster rentals for DIY cleanouts. Your single items to full-on messes, FM Junket gets it done. Call today and breathe a little easier. Welcome back to Still Serving Iowa Veterans. I'm Carlene Hall.
I'm Darlene McMartin.
We are here at the Air Force Commemorative Museum in Council Bluffs, Iowa, at the airport. This is Hangar B, and we are with Jim Frybert.
Jim's the curator of this wonderful memorabilia section, and we are anxious to hear all about how it got started and things that he can tell us about some of the memorabilia that he has on hand.
Yeah. We're sitting in front of an airplane, a 1942 World War II trainer, and I take care of the museum and the library. The aircraft mechanics take care of things like our PT-19. So.
Okay.
So when did you get started doing this then, Jim?
I grew up around airplanes, and shortly before I retired, I decided this place was a fun place to hang out. And a friend who grew up in Crescent, spent 34 years in the Air Force. I was actually down in front of, I was on the river, and I heard a World War II fighter plane, which you'd see pictures of all over our museum. And I pulled out my phone and called up a retired colonel and base commander and said, Delbert, I'm by the river at Gallup. Where are the Mustangs around here? And he was about 88 then, and he just recalled 1, 2, 3, where I'd find them. So then I started to look for the Council Bluffs Airport.
Okay. It looks like you've got a lot of books and a lot of other things on hand. How did you acquire some of this material?
Our group started in the early 80s, and we were blessed to have an older couple. They're now late 80s, early 90s. And Don and Norma were life members of the Commemorative Air Force. And she was working with the Cass County Historical Society, and they kept up the museum down there. And when the group started, a bunch of old guys, 30, 40 guys, we started here in the early 80s, and they brought in their collections. Most of them had served in World War II in the European theater, and so there was a lot of that. Over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, Don and Norma cataloged 1,700 items, and this is before there were computers, notebooks, laptops, and I don't even know how she printed all the cards we have, but I inherited, several years ago, I inherited a collection of about 1,700 items, most of which were cataloged, and today we've got 5,000 items cataloged.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. So Jim, you got here, repeat what year you got here?
I moved back to the Midwest in 2020 in the middle of COVID. And I got here, and my second day I immediately had a tech job in Omaha, and I was exploring to see, do I want to live in Lincoln or Omaha? I really knew it was Omaha. And when I found out there was a Mustang on the river or close to the river, then I was certain that, because I grew up in aircraft hangars.
Okay.
So
tell a little bit about that. Tell a little bit about your background, and it's a nice story. Your parents. It kind of explains how you came to do what you're doing.
It was a natural fit. Mom has a degree in library science and remodeled elementary school libraries before she was working. While my sisters were going to school, my mother decided she wanted to have a used bookstore. And so, and my family was voracious readers. Okay. And so Mom's a librarian, Dad worked in aerospace for 40 years. And so, and he had been an Air Scout during World War II, and his scout leader, Skipper George and Mary, never had less than 3 airplanes. So I was always in their hangar every weekend. My parents played bridge with them on Saturday night. Usually my dad would be working with them on airplanes most of the day on Saturday. So I was told, stay out of the way, go sit in the airplane, don't touch anything. And when you're a kid going through 12, it was like, don't touch. So I was out of sight, and I knew the controls well enough so that I was able to fly at 14.
So you did fly.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I
What
I
was your
haven't
best plane to fly?
Oh, I only had 2 flying. Majonier's son, Bill, was 7 years older than me. He had a Taylorcraft, which I helped to build, and it's kind of like the wings we have over in the background there. You have the airframe, and then you put fabric on it and stretch the fabric out. And I got to help do that when I was 10, 11, 12 years old.
Wow.
So it was kind of like I fit in the aircraft restoration process. I'd grown up in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very
So-
nice.
Awesome.
Very nice. And then the librarian side, you're just,
Well,
yeah,
my younger sister was limited to 30 books a week at the public library. And my dad, my friends were reading comic books in grade school and middle school. I couldn't wait for Dad to release, okay, I'm done with it, son. You can read it now.
Oh.
He got Aviation Week and Space Technology at home.
Okay.
So I'm reading the Air Force Aviation Industries trade publication from probably 6th or 7th grade on. So it was just that, and so devouring magazines was natural fit.
Yeah.
He's got a wall of books over there, and it's like first thing I looked at was, oh my gosh, all of these manuals. And how many did you say you had of those?
That shelf
just a
is 7
small.
feet high and 7 feet wide. We have about 200 aircraft manuals. Those shelves they barely fit about half our collection.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
we have manuals for all of the most popular aircraft in World War II, and then some that weren't so popular, like a German jet fighter
Oh.
and other planes so the guys who were in aviation, airframe and power plant school or flight school around here that are interested can come over, and we've got manuals for planes that are historic aircraft.
Hmm.
Well, you have you do repair here, right? And on your stuff, and you have mechanics here
We have
on site.
We have several. In aviation, they're called A&Ps,
Okay.
or airframe and power plant mechanics.
Okay.
So on the edge of this airport, Iowa Western Community College has an aviation maintenance school where they train airframe and power plant mechanics. And those guys go through a course that's 3 to 4 semesters long, and they get certified, and then they can go to work, like for Duncan Aviation in Lincoln. Duncan's got 1,400 Nebraska employees, 2,500 employees nationally.
Wow.
So there's
Yeah.
good place to get work, good job training. They make comparable money to what a lot of people in the trades make.
Mhm.
So we've got several guys who are A&Ps, and then we've got 2 guys who are taking the next step. After several years working on aircraft, you become an IA, or an inspector of aviation mechanics.
You said something about the National Guard before. They kind of utilize the airport
This-
at occasion?
This
or?
is a stopover,
Okay.
probably not even a refueling stop for the guys, but if they're picking up celebrities or Iowa government people, or they're doing something with schools, or the United States Air Force has their auxiliary training program called the Civil Air Patrol.
Okay.
And the Civil Air Patrol students, normally high school, freshman or sophomore, and I should know, my middle daughter graduated from CAP and then got a scholarship to the Air Force Academy. But the Civil Air Patrol kids usually have access to an airplane, and they start flight training, and they work for the Air Force in air rescue,
Oh, okay.
and just kind of learning the ropes. It's an early recruitment process for the Air Force.
Okay.
There's Sea Scouts if you want to go join the Navy, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Well, I figured you probably had some military people out here trying to recruit when you're working around aviation, because they'd be awesome in the military
Yeah.
The
to
kids,
start.
the kids love it. It's a great opportunity. Um, there are 5 Civil Air Patrol wings in Greater Omaha. There's one in downtown Omaha, or downtown, including probably Burke High School, and then they have a group in Lincoln. Zoe is an active Air Force person, and she's in charge of that wing. Um, there are people in Southwest Iowa. There's a couple, and they go back and forth, usually between Harlan and Atlantic. So their students are from a wider area. There's a group at Offutt and a group in Fremont, Nebraska.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. That's awesome.
Well, Jim, you have a lot of activities out here, and this is a great place for veterans to come and hang out together. So let's talk a little bit about what those events are that you do here, and how that camaraderie works, and what goes on.
It's a great place for old guys like me. This is kind of I have a glorified man cave, but we have a group that'll come in most every Saturday morning for coffee and donuts, and Wednesday evenings we're here from 5 to 7, and um, there are other things to drink in the refrigerator, but Saturday morning is really the biggest social time, and we get more guys that come in, old vets, old pilots, and younger people, and it's a chance to come out and talk shop with the other old guys. So we have a collection of people that are 60s, 70s, 80s, and some real interesting experiences.
Oh, I bet. Well, we're in here today because it's cold with the door down. So when that door's up, what's it like?
It's great here. You can see there's a bunch of chairs here on the hangar floor, and we'll set up even more sometimes and put some at the front edge of the hangar so that moms, dads, and little kids can sit and watch the airplanes, but they're well back from the flight safety lines. So, but they can sit in the hangar and see a lot of what's going on the airfield, and that's exciting to almost every little kid. And the older adults there, some of the guys can tell you every plane that takes off or lands, what it is. Some of them know whose it is, and about a dozen of them own their own aircraft, and they'll come out, and occasionally we'll have 3, 4, 5 guys fly in on a Saturday from all of greater Omaha and sometimes farther away, and we have some surprises at times as well. Um, Last spring we had 8 replica Japanese aircraft that were like the movie Pearl Harbor, Tora, 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 Midway, and they were commemorative Air Force. We have 13 aircraft rebuilt for that movie in 1979, and they're called the Tora, Tora, Tora Squad. And so coming to the airport, all of a sudden it would look like there were Japanese dive bombers, torpedo bombers, fighter planes, and a spare American plane coming in, flying down and landing on the airport in pairs. It was a lot of fun. And last year, one day in July, there were friends that were up at an air show in Minnesota, and they had 4 aircraft, navy blue aircraft, that were landed here in the afternoon. Somebody had a broken hose, and so their 4 planes were going back to Texas. And we had a A-1D Skyraider, which was used in Korea and Vietnam. We had a Corsair fighter plane used in Korea, World War II and Korea. We had an Avenger dive bomber, which is a big, 3 people can fit in it as crew, but it's a plane that George Bush Sr. flew. Not this particular aircraft, but if you had to evacuate an island in the South Pacific, you could squeeze 6 or 8 people into that airplane. It's a huge 2,000 horsepower, loud aircraft. And then they had a little Wildcat, which was a Grumman fighter plane right at the beginning of World War II. So, but it regularly, I mean, it's throughout the year, we have friends from the Commemorative Air Force and other air wings that come in. It's a good airport. There's about well over a mile on the long runway here. And there are commercial jets and charter jets and corporate jets that come in and out of this. So for the propeller-driven airplanes, it's an easy runway to come in and out of.
But some of this is just all of a sudden. It's not, you don't know
happenstance,
who's coming in,
or
don't know how to schedule it. So if I wanted to come and see all of that,
Yeah.
I
never know
wouldn't
what.
have a clue.
No, you never
I
know
mean,
what you
never.
have.
Yeah.
There's a schedule on the whiteboard over there that tells when our Mustang, we've had for 35 years, we had a P-51 Mustang fighter plane here. And it's probably the best known World War II fighter on the planet. It's been for sure, it's been on more book covers, magazine covers, and calendars than any other World War II fighter. It now lives in Florida because if the Commemorative Air Force wants this rare bird insured for $4.5 million to be at an air show in Florida, um, odds are that it's not going to be able to leave Council Bluffs or anywhere around Omaha in the middle of January or February. So they moved it south, and now it's in a hangar home down there. But it'll be back. Last year they said it would be here for a couple weeks. We ended it having it, the gunfighter, here for 7 weeks, all the weeknights. But it was doing air shows in Indianapolis, Wichita, Minnesota, Dakota. So it cruises at 300 miles an hour, so it can get anywhere in the Midwest pretty quickly. And we do the 50-quart, $1,200 oil change for free out of our 55-gallon barrels of oil. So it's serviced here regularly, and we've serviced a lot of the other. Commemorative Air Force has 180 aircraft, and any of them could stop in here at any time. They know they'll get tender, loving care from highly qualified mechanics.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's quite a network.
It's a fun group.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know what? We'd like to see the museum.
Yeah.
Would you
Okay.
show us the
Do a little-
museum?
sure.
Little tour here.
Should we do a quick tour of what we're looking at here?
Yeah,
Sure,
that'd be
sure.
great.
That would be
Let's,
good.
So the aircraft that's behind us is, I think I mentioned, it's a 1942 World War II trainer. They made several thousand of these Fairchild PT-19s. And the idea was, before that, in the 1930s, all of the training aircraft, and there weren't many, we had an abysmally small Air Force, Army Air Corps, and the Navy was just a little bit larger because they put more planes on aircraft carriers. At one point in 1939, the Army Air Corps had under 100 aircraft. And at the same time, the Germans in Europe had thousands, literally 4,000 aircraft. The Japanese had over 1,000 on several big aircraft carriers. So the PT-19 was the first step to go from a two-wing biplane, a higher and lower wing, and 120 miles an hour. This plane was designed to go 130, a little bit faster, but it had the feel of a plane with wings that were the pilot's co-pilot trainer would be looking down at the wing. So this had the same look as the fighter planes you'd find pictured all over our hangar and museum. So they made hundreds of these initially, and then thousands, and we went from having very few pilots to training over 300,000 aircrew members during World War II. Actually, 300,000 pilots, even a couple 100,000 more aircrew members. So over here to Kyle's, the camera's right, is one of our members. We're doing some maintenance on a Citabria, which is aerobatic spelled backwards. And we just replaced the pistons and cylinders. And somebody's enjoying some sun in Florida right now, and the mechanics are working on it. When they come back, this thing will go outside for flight right away. Over there, with a bunch of pins, looks like pins sticking out of it, a small porcupine, is our Airco air coupe. These were made between 1936 and 1970, and we got one that was in a farm barn hangar out in Hastings, and they hadn't done anything with it for 20 years. So we took the entire airplane apart. The wings are over in the back corner. We removed the aluminum from those, and we'll put fabric on them to make the plane about 25 pounds lighter in each wing. But the air coupe was used in the Gulf of America now, on either end of Florida and the South Atlantic, to patrol for German submarines, which were regularly off our coast from 1939 to 1944-45, the end of the war. But so this seat this seats 2 people. See an instructor and a student pilot, and they can trade, not while it's flying, but they can trade places. So front or rear. And whereas the air coupe over there, or that's a side-by-side sitting. So it's a different way to be able to communicate in the cockpit and train a student pilot. So, but so the rest of the hangar back there, it's a shop. And as a museum guy, I'm regularly reminded, this is an aircraft restoration hangar. This isn't the museum. It kind of is. The hangar is part of the museum is part of the hangar. And you can see what we're doing and how we reshape and bend and rivet metal, put planes back together. But the real museum is on the other side of the walls, and that's my place outside of the work area here.
Okay.
Well, let's take a look.
Let's take a walk. Yep.
Some of the aircraft, depending on the season, would leave from Kearney, Nebraska, and go down towards Brazil. And then the shortest distance across the Atlantic was from Brazil to West Africa. But this kind of shows the route of all of those planes. And then there's training bases. We have lots of maps here. So it's a good place for science, technology, engineering, art, and math, but also for history and geography. So these are actually landing gear that will go on this aircraft. And this aircraft is unique because there were a dozen of America's largest department stores had an Airco air coupe in their showroom in 1945 after the war. Macy's, you could find one on the first floor or the 5th floor, men's furnishings and airplanes. So, but it was unique because the guy who designed this aircraft said, I want a plane that's supposed to be crash proof. And these heavy duty landing gear, which are more like the plane aircraft landing gear on a carrier, super strong and sturdy. They said that you could take your hand off the wheel or the yoke, not a stick, and the plane would drop onto the runway. And this is tough stuff. So
It's heavy though.
yeah.
Heavy.
And a few things going in the museum. There's some spare wheels for a Mustang. There's always a set over there, spare wheels with tires on them. So if CAF has 3 P-51 Mustangs, and if they come up from Texas or down from Minnesota or anywhere else, and they're like, I got a hole in my tire, and it's just like, come on in, we'll put you back out. So it's not just tires for airplanes, but we always have spare wheels and tires. This is our museum. So normally when people come in, classrooms or old people, first question we ask is, were you in the military? Or do you have family that was in the military? And then we have a better idea if they were family in the Coast Guard or the Navy or Army or Marines. We can relate to some of the uniforms that are in here. But we start out usually the first thing that when they come in here, I think I said there were 14, 15 video players in the museum, the airport lobby, and in the hangar. And the first thing that we do is we show them a movie with Pearl Harbor. Scary that not all of the middle school and high school students could even tell you where Hawaii is. I can point to a half dozen maps around the museum and point out all of the land around where we were, who fought there, who our allies were, who our enemies were, the Axis powers. But in coming in here, we also explain, okay, years ago, there were no cell phones. You didn't have television news, you didn't have television. And so maybe you got a newspaper, maybe you didn't, but the newspaper or a weekly magazine would take days to cover real news. And so where you got real news, no podcasts available, you would go to the movie theater on Saturday and voila. So newsreels every Saturday. So you paid 5-10 cents to go to the movies, but you didn't have commercial previews. You had what was going on in the world on newsreels. So this starts out with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. There are 3 or 4 clips in this, and we have another Pearl Harbor. We have the Flying Tigers in China. And so this opens the opportunity to see the story. There's a map. Well, there's what it really looked like in Hawaii. And if you were in the sky at the wrong time on December 7th, 1941, you might have had other planes there. There's actually a female flight instructor was up in the air with a student pilot when the Japanese came into Pearl Harbor. That's a true story. And she thought at first there were B-17 American bombers coming in from the mainland, and she realized, no, those are not American planes coming in. So, so we start out with a short story and videos, and how the news was spread in 1941. And then you can see it's overwhelming. With 1,000 square feet and 5,000 artifacts, we can't begin to display half of what we have, but we rotate displays, and our museum is kind of chronologically sorted day-wise. So the earliest aviators are over here in the corner. Our earliest artifacts, we have a Civil War bayonet. We have a 1918 Army infantry uniform from World War I. Our oldest photograph or media is an 1898 picture from Havana, Cuba, the Spanish-American War. So, and sorry about that, I can move. So there's a model of Orville and Wilbur Wright's plane. And then all through the museum, it's kind of, all right, we have 1941, we have 1942, 42, our twin engine, 2-engine bombers, and including the McMartin B-26 Marauder, which 1,500 were made in Omaha. And that plant became a B-29 plant in April of 1944, and we made the outstanding 4-engine bomber of the war in Omaha. So Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, and I didn't show you and won't today, we'll do that in another visit. There's a 1945 aircraft carrier, or World War II USS Essex, which was a very famous aircraft carrier being built by a lieutenant commander, and we'll have 25 aircraft and LED lighting on the hangar deck and all kinds of things to show people. That's a work in process. There's always a work in process. The mechanics love the 2 engines that are in here. So the first engine, bright red, and most of them in the British airplanes, they made 186,000 of these, Rolls-Royce, Merlin. So you see Rolls-Royce here on the covers, only this one says Rolls-Royce and this one says Maytag, like your washer dryer appliances. Maytag in Newton, Iowa, I used to have a letter from Fred Maytag taped to this. In 1941, a few months before Pearl Harbor, Fred Maytag said, we're out of the appliance business. Tell your customers if they want something, order it now. If we have it, we'll ship it. If we don't, you're out of luck. We're going to help the military. It was FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President Roosevelt's plan to be America would become the arsenal of democracy. And virtually every manufacturing plant in the country, Ford, General Motors, Packard, who knows what that is, everybody converted to manufacturing war materials. So Maytag made parts in Newton, Iowa, just over an hour away. They made parts for 24 different American aircraft. So this is a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine that would have been on an aircraft like this, but actually it's that. We have ABCD models. They have Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, Mark 5 Spitfire. This came from a Spitfire. It was the Brits' best fighter plane through most of the war and loved and flown by thousands of American pilots. We weren't at war, but a lot of young American guys looking for adventure or with relatives in Europe wanted to fight for freedom. They knew what the Nazi Germans were doing and what the Italians were doing, dropping poison gas on people all over Africa. So it was a group called, they were in the Royal Air Force or the Royal Canadian Air Force, they became the Eagle Squadrons. Eagle Squadrons were American pilots, and several thousand Americans trained to join the Royal Air Force, the Queen's Royal Air Force, or then the King's and Queen's Royal Air Force, and they fought for, in fact, this shows Royal Canadian Air Force Americans killed in action by state. And if you look closely, 10 Iowa pilots died and 5 from Nebraska, flying in the Royal Canadian Air Force. for the British defending England, Great Britain against the Germans. Over here, I'm sorry, I have a little bit of cleaning. I've got magazines around. There's always sorting out magazines, but we have the different cabinets are dedicated to a time period or a particular part of the Army Air Corps. Thousands of schools around the country had students making millions of plastic models and balsa wood carved models of military aircraft that we and our enemies flew, so they could give those to the military and identify what kind of plane is this. And so that was in papers and newspapers. There's a Coca-Cola brochure, Know Your Airplanes. So it was a big deal because not so much for us in Iowa or Nebraska, but for people that were on the east or west coast. If that plane was coming overhead, was that really a friendly? Or if you were traveling somewhere else around the world, it was worse than that. So here's another engine, and this is a Wright Cyclone. Wright, like Orville and Wilbur Wright, and Cyclone is a model number, but this is an 1820 model. It's 9 cylinders. This is a radial engine, whereas that's a V12, and it's glycol cooled, and this is air cooled. And it was used in B-17 Flying Fortresses, 4-engine bombers, kind of like the profile. It was used in DC-3s and C-47 twin-engine bombers, and a half dozen fighter planes. And ours actually came from a 1950s helicopter. So that's why it's canted this way, just for display purposes, but the drive shaft would have gone straight up to the helicopter blades. So it's a collection of uniforms, maps, manuals, manuscripts, instruments. On that back case, there's several different helmets from 5 different countries. And I'm regularly repairing and rehanging models, so that's why we have a Cold War B-47 jet on the table, because it belongs up there. And one of my buddies, Brian, actually had 7 stripes, Brian Nystrom's uniform, and then around the corner behind Kyle, there's a general, a brigadier general, Regis Urschler, who was at Offutt Air Force Base and in charge of the 55th Wing there. But Reggie's the guy that brought the gunfighter here, there's all kinds of pictures of the Mustang. I don't know where to start or stop with you guys.
I don't know where to start or stop with learning about different things.
It's the areas that most people come in to look at, Darlene, or the kids are interested in, some of the kids that know planes are interested in fighter planes. So
you show them all these
yeah,
that are
well,
up in the air.
this is kind of like, we don't realize how big a deal our military was. We started our first mission in France with B-17 bombers, 12 planes flew across the English Channel to bomb a target in France. That was in August of 1942. By 1945, the formations were 1,000 bombers and several hundred fighters to escort them, so they didn't have Germans attacking them. And like today, we hope in Iran, we control the skies. If you control the skies at war, you pretty much control the battlefield. And early in the war, in 42 and 43, our 4-engine bombers were being raked through the coals by the Germans. And in fact, on a mission to get to oil fields in Romania, Ploiești, Polstoi, we lost 66, 70 planes in a couple hours on single missions. That's 70 aircraft like this, or like this, 4-engine bombers, but there's 10 guys inside. You lose one plane, you've got 10 guys that are in trouble. They may parachute down and be saved, or they might not get to the ground.
We just did a little demographics of how many Iowa soldiers that were killed during World War II, and we had about 8,000 that we lost in World War II.
Out of 266,000.
Yeah, out of 266,000 soldiers, yeah.
The most dangerous job, and we're an aviation museum, we have all military, but it's mostly aviation. The most dangerous job in the American military in World War II was the 8th Air Force, which was flying out of England and attacking German targets, and 45,000 in just the Army Air Corps, just out of England. And so, and the way that happened was, you had formations like this. There's 10 planes here and escort fighter planes, but a B-17 formation in 1945 could have been 1,000 planes 30 miles long sections, 1,500 feet wide, 1,500 feet deep. And so it's kind of what we're illustrating here with formations of aircraft. And the other thing, the math students figure it out right away. We have different scales. Most of our aircraft on the ceiling are 1/72 or 72 times smaller than the airplane actually is. In our display cases, most of the aircraft are 1/48 scale or quarter scale. So 1 inch on the model equals 48 inches or 4 feet on the real aircraft. So, and like this one is, you met Jerry, who is one of our mechanics. This actually is a model of his dad's aircraft, which was named Pugnacious. It was in the 8th Air Force. There's pictures of his dad's flight crew. There's pictures of another plane, Chowhound, what it looked like when it was in good shape before it went on mission, what it looked like after it came back from being shot at by Germans, anti-aircraft and attacked by German fighters. But you see, there's a guy in the front, bombardier, pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer or top turret gunner, waist gunners, tail gunner. And so you could see inside of it. There's all kinds of things that we offer people historically or about aeronautics, aviation, blueprints of aircraft. There's one over there for the 4-engine bomber built in Wichita, and the Mustang fighter. We're kind of Mustang biased because we had one in our hangar for 35 years. Then we had another North American aviation trainer, an AT-6. There's a picture of that over there. So it's kind of office machinery. If you have millions of people in the Army, and that means you have thousands of people doing paperwork. So this machine makes dog tags, and every soldier had 3 dog tags. 3, not 2. They got 2. One stayed with their files so that you could run it, and you'd run it like a credit card from 30, 40 years ago. And that was one of your dog tags. And then a teletype machine where you would type out a message and then it would go through the phone lines and print out on the other end. So don't get my work table over there, Kyle, sorry.
Oh, this is awesome. We really appreciate everything that you have.
Well,
and if anybody needs, okay, so if I have some memorabilia, would you take it?
No, that's what I'm supposed to say. That's my politically correct Great Plains Wing answer. No, we're filled. No, seriously, we tell anybody that calls and says, I've got my great uncles, my granddads, my fathers, my moms, my aunts, military uniform, or some things that they left here and nobody in the family wants them. And so we would say, we would really like to look at them. And we look at them because we've got behind this wall is a closet with the remainder of the 700 pieces of uniforms that you don't see on display. So if it's something we don't have, we're interested. If it's something that's in good condition and we don't have to spend a lot of money restoring it, because everything goes to commercial. Max I Walker's Dry Cleaners does all of our uniforms for us. And so because old wool, cotton, it wears out. And that's one of the reasons that this room is always, in the wintertime, it's between 62 and 68 degrees, ideally. And in the summertime, it's usually between 68 and 78. This room is closed and there's doors on either end, unlike we just walked through today, but normally they're shut. It's a climate controlled environment to protect the paper and materials inside the museum. We have manuals and books and maps that are 80 years old. And some of that paper, it's ready to turn to dust. If you mishandle it or it gets handled by very many people, the oil on your skin can get on things.
What years are the best that you would collect? I mean, you want from...
Most of our museum, Darlene, is World War II. So 1939 for the Allied powers to 1945. But the Commemorative Air Force has aircraft and an interest in honoring all vets. So Korean War vets. Korean War was 1950 to 1953. We started showing up in Vietnam in 1959. We didn't leave there until 1973. And then people in the services in between, before and after the wars. So we have uniforms from 1918. You saw that one, World War I to 2023. Might be a 2024 uniform in here somewhere too. But
Yeah.
so
I'll bet you
the
we
whole
could
spectrum.
get Primrose or Chapters Living to bring their bus and bring
And
some
have
of their
to-
veterans.
Some of their veterans to come and do a
And,
tour.
yeah,
It needs to be.
Yeah.
How often do you usually have tours or people? I mean, are you getting
we're
busy?
officially open Wednesday evenings and Saturdays. Unofficially, there's people working in the hangar. I mean, you got here and 3 guys were just leaving. We're here 4, 5, 6 days a week, and we'll book a tour any day that.
Book a tour.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that's-
if somebody calls us on an odd day or an odd time, we'll usually make arrangements so 2 or 3 people can guide them through the
I
museum.
guarantee you,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of Air Force vets that
We have
would
had
love
tours
to
from
absolutely love.
Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, and points beyond.
I think it would be fun to bring them to just sit out there
And
on a
have a
Saturday morning
Yeah.
for coffee and donuts and
Yeah.
tell their stories.
If you can get vets together, they'll open up more often. They may not have told the stories to their nieces and nephews and grandkids, sons and daughters, but they'll talk to somebody who was in the war. And the experience, it's just really rich to do that. So
We have
it's a
an
lot of fun.
option then.
Yeah, I love the idea
Yeah.
for some of our veterans that are in nursing homes here, and we were just talking this morning. You know, the World War II veterans are 90 and above.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the sooner we could do that, the better, and see what we can do to
We're
organize.
wide open, available. We'll go out of our way to be hosts.
We'll make
for-
sure we pass this
for
on
groups
to a
like
lot of
that.
our groups.
Yes.
To tell them to do this, because this is remarkable. The
That's the most
memorabilia
fun.
and
For us
yeah.
younger guys
Yeah.
in our 60s and 70s and 80s to meet with people who are in their 90s to 100 or more. I just lost a dear friend who I've seen every month for lunch or dessert, and Don was, I think I told you, he was the last World War II fighter ace in America, and he was 103 when he died August 14th. So it was, and he was still sharp. So Don could tell me, he could recall every place he trained around the country before he went to Florida, before he went to San Diego, before he went to Hawaii, before he got put on an aircraft carrier. And so, and Don's story is on probably 20 or 30 YouTube episodes. So
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
Appreciate the
visiting
tour
today.
and
Yep. The Iowa Veterans Foundation is sponsoring our program, and we really appreciate their business to bring this to all of the people that watch our podcast.
yes, we
we're
do
here to
appreciate
serve
Yeah.
the veterans. So that is why we exist. We do education, we do a service to the veterans, and then we share our enthusiasm for aviation. So
We can see that.
Yes.
Yes.
We want to say thank you to Full Metal Junket and Drake Roller, who is one of our sponsors as well. He has a junk business, as you might have it, in Carson, Iowa. He does clean outs for people who are cleaning out their, maybe a hoarder, or maybe someone's passed away. And he comes across a lot of military memorabilia as well. And
Veteran.
yes, he's a veteran. He's a Marine, and he also rents dumpsters.
sometime on another visit, Carlene, I'll tell you about Dudley Wilbur, who is an Army Air Force captain, he was a newlywed at the beginning of World War II, and his wife didn't have a regular job, so she traveled around with him to go to the different training bases until he was sent out of the country. So he's from Carson, Iowa.
Yeah.
And so name a small town, we might have somebody in here
Yeah.
from
Dudley.
there.
I love that.
Dudley was
So-
one of the veterans I graciously got to meet, and he was an awesome guy. We all both got him a honor from the Iowa National Guard at the same time. Dudley and I both did.
Oh,
So,
that's
yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah.
What a great way to meet him
Yeah.
too. Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
I had met him before that, but I didn't know we were both getting that honor at that same time. So yeah.
Right, that's wonderful. Well, thank you again for
Yes.
opening this up to us today. Yeah, and thank you for joining us on Still Serving Iowa Veterans. We'll see you next time.